We are now 1 week out of the NFL draft, so we're going to take a look at the NFL offseason winners and losers. This is the Fumblerooski podcast.
It may not have always showed it in the stat sheet, but you can see him making throws when he needs to make the throws.
Back-to-back games where he has 3 touchdowns. Someone's got to get that 6 or 7 spot.
He's an elite wide receiver as a rookie.
Truly a lose-lose scenario for both sides.
Welcome to the Fumblerooski podcast. It's Friday, May 2nd, another Friday edition of the Rooski podcast. Not too many more of these Friday episodes, at least for this off season. But today we're going to be looking at the NFL offseason winners and losers. We're going to go over a couple on each side, just 2 apiece from CJ and I. But first, before we get into that, George Kittle received a 4-year, $76.4 million extension earlier this week. Didn't get a chance to touch on this during our interview with Tony Pauline earlier this week on Tuesday. Be sure to check out that in terms of after draft analysis. Got a chance to talk with him about Shedeur Sanders and that whole saga, yada, yada. So be sure to check out that interview. But George Kittle receiving this extension, which would mean that he would be a 49er basically for life at that point, up until through the 2029 season with the extension. Only 1 year left on his deal, or had 1 year left on his deal coming into this season. So this basically just makes, as I just said, makes him a 49er for life, doing right by him, getting him another contract, and doing something that, we don't really see too much often anymore, and players sticking it out with one franchise for their entire career. So on the outside looking in, this is it's a good deal because you got a fan favorite, all-time tight end, all-time great tight end in George Kittle, and you get him to retire as a 49er at that point. Assuming that it goes that way. Obviously, the way things can go, he could get traded at any moment. But either way, if you're the 49ers, it's a good move.
Yeah, I do want to point this out. Diana Rossini reported that right before they did that extension with Kittle, a team apparently called in and offered a second rounder for him. The Niners declined it and made him the highest paid tight end in the league instead.
That's honestly not a bad trade.
No, it's really not, considering the fact I believe he's on the wrong side of 30.
Yeah, he's 30.
With a bit of an injury history, that's actually really good because a lot of tight ends, honestly, a lot of stars, once they hit 30, the going rate, if you're lucky, is a third. The fact you got a team to offer a second's great, but re-signing Kittle, I like that move. Like you said, fan favorite, keeps him around for a while. And my question is, well, you're already in not the greatest cap situation. Brock Purdy's going to be commanding a stupid amount of money. And look, I've defended Brock Purdy before, don't get me wrong, but something about 60 mil a year for Brock Purdy just doesn't sit right with me. Not at all. And yeah, I mean, I already gave Ayuk a stupid amount of money. Will he come back to normal? Nobody knows. That's the fun. Well, not if you're a Niners fan. For the rest of us, it kind of is.
Yeah, I mean, especially if you're going to have Brock Purdy as your franchise, assuming that they're going to make him their franchise guy, you get a staple of the franchise and a really reliant part of the offense. Obviously, you mentioned the injury history. That's not very reliant, but when Kittle's actually on the field, a very reliable target out there for the Niner offense, and something you're going to want for a young, or well, Purdy's not that, he's now a couple of years in the league at this point, but still in terms of being a quarterback, a younger quarterback. So it works out. It works out. But as you mentioned, Kittle's on the wrong side of 30. He's 31. So he really doesn't have that much time left, but I think this contract is basically laying out, this is your career timeline. This is what we think that is left of you at this point. I mean, that's basically, you could take the tight end position out of it. That I'd say this is probably the likelihood of any NFL athlete, any athlete in any sport, really, a final timeline of their career at that point.
Yeah. There have been some other like smaller things going around the NFL as well. Like, for example, before we dive right into our main topic, Elijah Moore was signed by the Bills. It was a
Yep.
wonderful deal. Other than that, I mean, there hasn't been a whole lot going on. There's been, I mean, as far as signings go, we have heard that the Miami Dolphins are apparently in contact with corner Rasul Douglas. That's something. I mean, they need all the help they can get back there, especially with Ramsey likely on his way out. I mean, they're so desperate. They're even in contact with defensive back James Bradbury, he who gets burned every other play. And it is that time of the year, by the way, kids, that players can have, at least they're drafted in the first, if they're drafted in the first round, can have their fifth-year options picked up or declined. That's been some of the subject. I'd like to rattle a few off. Eagles defensive tackle Jordan Davis has had his fifth-year option picked up. And this is an interesting one. Jaguars linebacker Devin Lloyd has had his option declined. So I don't know what that's all about. Wide receiver Drake London has had his option picked up, obviously. Ravens have picked up Kyle Hamilton's fifth option. Once again, just no-brainer. Am I right? The Jets are picking up Jermaine Johnson's fifth-year option. That makes sense, does it not? So there's going to be that. I mean, that's something. Oh, and by the way, Traylon Burks, surprise, surprise, fifth-year option declined. And most recently, Patriots guard Cole Strange is, arguably one of the bigger reaches that we've seen in the past 5 years as, the new regime's in and his option's been declined. So there you have it. That's just some more option stuff going on there.
Yeah, if you're a Pats fan, you're kind of rejoicing at the Cole Strange thing and still having a lot of bitter feelings, of course, from when Belichick drafted him so early on. But yeah, the Jalen I would have, back to Jalen Ramsey, I would have thought that the Dolphins would have made a deal for him, or would have dealt him out right before the draft, try to get some sort of draft capital at that point. But CJ, you like to mention this a lot too. It's at that point, it seems more of a desperation move. And obviously, when you were talking about it, or when you talk about it, you weren't talking about Jalen Ramsey, but I'm just saying in past instances, it's more of a desperation move, and Dolphins they were probably getting offers right before the draft, but weren't getting as fruitful of offers as they would have liked to, if they probably were to wait till at least now and going forward after the draft.
Yeah, I was shocked they didn't trade him because if all the reports from very credible sources, I might add, are to be believed, then he's on his way out, is he not?
Yeah, no, he's there.
That's what
He's on his way out. He's on his way out. They're just trying to find a trade partner. He's not going to be a Dolphin this season.
No, he's not. And one thing that I do want to make very clear is that apparently Miami isn't too keen on taking the usual aging veteran rate for him. They want to squeeze out as much as you can, which makes sense because, that's how trades work in general. But it doesn't matter if you're like one of the biggest names in the league. Once you're past 30, you're not unless you do a master swindle against some idiot GM, then you're not going to get a first round pick, which I don't think that's what Miami wants. I know they're being a little stubborn and they're waiting for a better offer, but we're at the time where the longer you wait, your offer can only go down, right?
Yeah.
That's how it tends to work. And I know the Rams are interested in Ramsey. Maybe we could see a reunion there. That'd be interesting. McVay would know how to use him. But
Rams
a lot of it, too, is that Dolphins GM Chris Greer is on the hot seat. And to a lesser extent, so is McDaniel. So you have to make very calculated, very deliberate movements before the start of the season, because if even one thing blows up, your seats can get that much warmer.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. All right, let's get into these off-season winners and losers, why don't we? Saw a lot of good ones, a lot of bad ones, of course. A lot of expected ones, in terms of the losers, just based off of either the way that their ownership is, either they're always in cap hell. We probably gave away who the losers are, but first winner is going to be the Patriots. Obviously, we're a little biased being Pats fans, but I mean, when you look at what the Pats have done this offseason, just completely rejuvenating the defense, basically hitting on a lot of big offensive line signings as well. Will Campbell basically being the last piece of the puzzle in terms of your O-line. Now you're in a weird, but I mean, the one downside is that now you're in a weird spot with this whole Cole Strange situation. So now you're going to have to, the left guard position, I feel like, is a very up for grabs, but I mean, 4 out of 5 good linemen at the very least. It's a good ratio, but you still have a hole in the line. Travion Henderson being a second-round pick, fantastic draft pick for the Pats. Running back room looks really good. Stephon Diggs getting signed as well. Just that felt like that was out of fucking nowhere. And I say that more so because the Pats, when it comes to landing free agent wide receivers, is, I mean, the biggest free agent wide receiver that they were able to land in the last 20 years was Randy Moss and Wes Welker back in 2007.
Well, that was Welker they traded for Moss.
Yeah. But
and that's the thing, like these premier wide receivers never choose New England as a spot. And the fact that they finally, and every time you see it, right, we always hear New England is always second place, always the bridesmaid, never the bride.
Yep.
And the fact that they finally were able to seal the deal on a wide receiver, I'm still shocked. And it's Stephon Diggs, too, who I don't know if you've seen the videos about him, but he's apparently healed up really nicely from his ACL tear, and he's going to be a great target for the youngin' there, Drake May. And so this offseason, the Patriots had the most money, and they're notorious for, even when they do have money.
I thought they had I thought it was second in cap space.
No, they had the most.
Oh, for some reason, I thought it was Washington that had the most.
No, but whatever. So the
cap confuses me, man. The cap confuses me. I'm done.
Hey, that's what Mickey Loomis of the Saints says too. Would you like his job? You probably do it better. I trust you.
Yeah, probably.
Because you don't believe in going into debt, which is very good, very good.
Yeah.
But so for New England, they did have a history for like the past few seasons of having a bunch of money, but really having very modest, not splashy signings. The last time they did splurge money, they brought in Kendrick Bourne and Nelson Aguilar. They made a lot of signings, but not that high level stuff you want. But now they go out there and they beefed up the defense, which was really lacking last season, which is weird in New England.
Yeah.
You go out, you get Robert Spillane, Carlton Davis, Milton Williams. You get Morgan Moses and Garrett Bradbury for the O-line. You got Stephon Diggs and Mac Hollins at wide receiver. And then there's the draft where they're one of, if not the biggest winner of the draft. You got Will Campbell, you got Travion Henderson, you got Kyle Williams, you got Jared Wilson, and even some defensive steals like Joshua Farmer and Braden Swinson as well. So as a whole, this feels weird as a Pats fan to say, but they're one of, if not the biggest winner of this entire offseason. And one thing that I do want to mention, Chris, is I would argue this is the first offseason, this 2025 offseason, since 2021 where the team got better. Because they went on that little spending spree back in 2021, and then they just regressed more and more and more. Big players were allowed to walk. Like there were just these weird boneheaded trades like very questionable decisions, and the team just got worse and worse and worse. And we kept hearing next man up, next man up. And the next guy was garbage, Valerian Lowe, looking at you specifically. And so it's the first time in a long time where the roster got better. And so, yeah, I mean, for Patriots fans everywhere, it's hey, nice. Just finally, am I right? So,
seriously.
What else we got here, Chris?
Yeah, I think we've touched on the Patriots pretty well, and don't want to show too much of the bias. But at first, losers on the list, going to go Bengals. This all really just stems from the 24 season, really, and just being in this weird contract situation with T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. You finally get a deal done. But other than that, what else have they done, I guess, is the question here.
Yep, that's a great question. I mean, so here's the thing. You got Higgins and Chase. That's it. Your entire roster is Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Trey Hendrickson. There's some good vibes that they can get a deal done, but you can't sign him and field a competent rest of the roster. I don't even know how to describe it. They just, I guess, from nothing comes nothing is an old saying. And I think the same applies here. They're going to be that team that drops 40 every game, but gives up 45, and they're not scoring, they're not running up the score because they can, they're doing it because they have to. Last season, this was a team that lost to Pittsburgh and New England, two teams that, to put it nicely, were offensively challenged. And look, and it sucks that they're wasting Joe Burrow's career. And if I'm being honest, Zach Taylor probably should be fired. Their GM should also be fired. The way he's just continually mangled this team since their surprise Super Bowl appearance. And honestly, I think Joe Burrow has what it takes to be a Hall of Famer. He has what it takes to be an MVP. He has what it takes to be a Super Bowl champion. And look, this defense and lack of offensive line has cost the Bengals. And look, a lot of people don't talk about it, but Joe Burrow is getting a bit of an injury history now because the offensive line just can't protect him. The defense can't stop a nosebleed, and as a result, it wasted an MVP caliber season from Burrow. And a lot of people, myself included, believe that if the Bengals, even as a wild card, made the playoffs, slam dunk, Joe Burrow's the MVP. He had better numbers than the actual MVP, Josh Allen. He had better numbers than the runner-up, Lamar Jackson. It's literally just that playoff berth that stood between him and getting it. And the Bengals, they just didn't improve at all. And when I looked at the free agency haul they got, right, there's really nobody that blows me away. I mean, they re-signed Chase and Higgins and Gesicki, right, and BJ Hill and all of them. That's great. But you want to hear their new arrivals? This is per the Bengals, by the way. I'm looking at their page. TJ Slayton, Joe Giles Harris, Lucas Patrick, Oren Burks, and Samaj Pirine. That's just not going to cut it. That's just not going to cut it.
No disrespect to Samaj Pirine. I'm a Pirine guy, but no disrespect, but that's definitely not enough.
Yeah. And now let's look at their draft. So as you know, first overall or first round pick, they grabbed Shamar Stewart from Texas A&M. He's very raw as a prospect. And I think he can be developed into a really scary pass rusher. I don't trust the Bengals to do that. Then they grab linebacker Demetrius Knight from South Carolina. A bit of a reach. I had him pegged at a late third round pick. They grabbed him mid-second, but I mean, he's fine. They got guard Dylan Fairchild from Georgia, a very okay pick. Barrett Carter from Clemson in round 4. I really did like that pick. 5th round, Jalen Rivers, a tackle from Miami. I didn't expect him to get drafted. And then running back Taj Brooks from Texas Tech in round 6. Once again, probably shouldn't have been drafted. So you only had 6 picks overall, and they didn't really maximize it. So as a whole, at best, you're not going to get worse. You're just going to tread water right where you are, which is mediocrity incarnate. Bengals, you need to get better. You need to build around Joe Burrow, and you just, like I said, you're just treading water. You lost this offseason. No ifs, ands, or buts.
Yeah, easily. And like we said, it really all just starts with the whole contract fiasco and from last season. Trey Hendrickson still waiting on an extension as well. They're in hell. They're not in hell. They're in purgatory. That's what they're in. Looking at next winner on our other winner that we have is the Chicago Bears. Boy, I get the frustration of the Bears' first round pick being a tight end. You can have the discussion on who they should have gone with instead, but ends up being actually a good pick when you think about how often Ben Johnson goes with the 2 tight end set. So he's going to have himself a field day. Along with that, Devin Duvernay, you signed him. Olamide Zacchaeus signed him. Jonah Jackson, you're able to keep him along. Traded a 4th round pick to the Chiefs for Joe Thuney. Huge, big for the O-line. On top of that as well, you were able to get Grady Jarrett. Well, I might feel like I just talked out of my ass for a second there.
No,
they got Grady Jarrett this offseason, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What? I don't know why I was like, I don't know why my mind was like, no, that was last season. You're wrong. But yeah, Bears. On top of getting Ben Johnson as your head coach, and this was, this was a team that people thought was going to be a contender, a playoff team, right? And then obviously they just fell off a freaking cliff halfway through the season after going 4-4, starting with the Hail Mary to Washington. Now you have yourself a competent head coach, a team that is now re-upped, revitalized, remanned. And one of the biggest problems, obviously, was the O-line. You were able to kind of figure it out on the O-line now. Especially with Joe Thuney. That's huge. Get a veteran guy, veteran leader, guy that knows how to win rings. It's perfect. So they're definitely in a much better spot to go into this coming summer than last summer, in my opinion. However, they also haven't re-signed Keenan Allen, so that's also one less mount that they have to worry about.
Yeah, so the Chicago Bears, look, Caleb Williams, well, he does have a tendency to hold on to the ball too long. The offensive line wasn't that great. So what do? They get themselves a new center with Drew Dahlman, and they beef up the interior of the line, which is really their big weakness with Joe Thuney and Jonah Jackson. Huge, right? That's great. Then on the defensive line, you grab Dio Dangbo and Grady Jarrett, which, pass rush, aside Montez Sweat, really didn't exist. And those are real. And you got, Devin Duvernay for kick returning. That's great. But the real thing's the draft. Colston Loveland. It was a controversial pick. It was a reach, obviously. And the Bears Tyler Warren was a superior prospect in almost every way. But the reason the Bears took Loveland was it was pure scheme fit. And that's always been one of the big questions of the draft is it wise to sacrifice talent for scheme fit? Some teams, it works really well, whereas, scheme fit can, be more than talent. Sometimes not so much. I mean, a lot of teams, tend to get burned by that in the past. But overall, Loveland is fine. I don't know why they drafted him with Cole Kmet there, but he's not the headliner here for me. Luther Burden in the second round. Now, don't get me wrong. All of his concerns are off the field. He's a big-time diva. He's riddled with character concerns. But if Ben Johnson can keep him under control, he can mold into something dangerous, right? And in the second round, they also grabbed tackle Ozzie Trapillo from Boston College. He was one of my most underrated tackle prospects, and I think they got a good one there. He could very well start day one, and also in the second round, you got Shamar Turner, defensive tackle from Texas A&M. So you beefed up the front seven, and you put some pieces on the offensive line and the pass catching core around Caleb Williams. Then rounds 4 and on, where they took some swings on guys like Ruben Hypolite and Kyle Monangai, who I really do think could play pivotal roles with this Bears team. But the thing is with the Bears, on paper, they were already good, right? At least according to me. But oh boy, I tell you, this is finally the year that they put it together, right? Because the Bears fan base, at least, has crowned themselves off-season champs. Well, as a Patriots fan, I may disagree, but I'll humor them for a sec, right? This would be like, what, the third season in a row that they've been dubbed by themselves and even the media as off-season champs? If that's the case, then when will off-season champs translate to division champs? Perhaps even Super Bowl champs in the future? Like, you keep so-called winning in the off-season, but you're not winning in the regular season. So if you're the Bears, I would say it's now or never, right? You got to put it together. And honestly, I think they can. They have the roster and if to pull it off. And if Caleb Williams develops, a playoff berth is very much in their future. You're muted, Chris.
It's because my dog was going off, and I keep forgetting I mute myself when that happens.
It's all good.
It's okay. Last loser that we have is the New Orleans Saints. I mean, they are consistently in cap hell, so it's really just what can you actually do, you know? Hired Kellen Moore as your head coach. That's still don't really know how that one's going to pan out. Career as a assistant coach so far is his first head coaching job. Hasn't been bad as an offense coordinator. Did pretty well with the Eagles last season, but we'll see how it ends up. But in terms of the Saints, I mean, your biggest free agent acquisition was bringing back Brandon Cooks to a 1-year deal. So it's like that's probably the most notable thing they did. Other than that, they got Devon Gotcha from the Pats for a 7th-round pick. Justin Reed, they were able to get him on a 3-year deal, which that's actually a pretty good deal when you think about it, or pretty good signing, I should say. Juwan Johnson, they were able to grab him or re-sign him, I should say. Also picked up Jack Stoll from the Colts, Jonah Williams. But other than that, it's, when you just think about the Saints, it's just complete and total turmoil. And don't even get me started on the freaking quarterback situation. You're going to be without Derek Carr most likely for the entirety of next season. At least that's what reports are showing. So next guy up is Spencer Rattler and Jake Haener, who had Jake Haener most known for the most flamboyant media day that you could possibly have in any level of any sport. Nothing wrong with that. But your solution at that point is not to go for Shedeur Sanders at 9, not to go him in round 2, not to go with him in round 3, not to go with him in round 4, not even to go with him in round 5. But before that, before Shedeur even got picked, Tyler
Shuck, actually.
Shuck, dude.
Yeah, it shouldn't be pronounced that way, but that's the marvel of the English language, kids.
Tyler Shuck is your quarterback, or is your draft pick at quarterback. It's like, I understand he was sort of getting up on people's big boards and whatnot after the combine, but there's nothing there that really screams that he's going to do anything.
He's
So
literally just Brandon Whedon. And by the way, by the time October rolls around for next season, he's going to be 26.
yeah,
How are you a rookie and you've already reached the football equivalent of UNC status?
Yeah.
You want to know how long he's been in the league or he's been in college? If I recall correctly, he was in the same QB class as Trevor Lawrence. He backed up Justin Fields at Oregon. I'm not Justin Fields, Justin Herbert. Sorry.
No,
He
you're
backed up Justin Herbert at Oregon, and he's going to be apparently the last player born in the 90s or the 1900s at least to be drafted. And I don't know. So look, free agency real quick. Justin Reed was the only signing that I liked. I mean, you re-signed Trace Young. But other than that, I mean, Jonah Williams, really, Landon Young, Dante Pettis. I mean, they re-signed Jawan Johnson, like just Isaac Yadam. Like, there's just, and even if you talk about Brandon Cooks, like, there's really no one here that's gonna move the needle for the Saints. And don't get me started on that draft. Well, I think Kelvin Banks Jr. is a fine as a prospect. There are some questions about his ability to play tackle. He even said so on draft night. And at 9, I'm not crazy about that. Tyler Shuck in round 2 was abysmal. Vernon Broughton at DT in the 3rd round. I like that. I do. I do not like Jonas Sanker in round 3, the safety. Linebacker Danny Stutzman in round 4. Hey, I can't complain. That's good. Quincy Riley in round 4 at corner. No, not crazy about that. Devin Neal from Kansas, following them at round 6, I think is actually a steal of a pick. But then I forget the guy's name. I think it's like Moliki Matavau from UCLA. Probably shouldn't have been drafted. And, they just took a flyer on Fidel Diggs at the end for Syracuse, who was, I don't know. He's one of those guys where he's a good college player, emphasis on college.
Yeah.
So, an absolute nothing burger of a draft compared with something that just doesn't push the needle at all in free agency, combined with the fact that that's right, my fellow Americans, they're still in cap hell, and you have a team that is very quickly going nowhere. Hell, they might even go backwards.
They're better off just like burning the entire roster and starting over. Just really they are literally better off releasing everybody and just starting over from scratch and grabbing a bunch of like Uncle Toms off the street and just
Don't
playing
say that,
ball.
Chris.
Sorry. You know what I mean.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Or getting a bunch of Uncle Ricos, actually, or whatever is what's
just
his
unks in general, yeah.
No, what's his name in Napoleon Dynamite?
Uncle Rico, you had it right.
Oh, yeah, okay, I did have it right. I didn't get a lot of sleep last night. My mind's all mush right now. But yeah, you're just better off getting a bunch of Uncle Ricos just playing for you for a season, tank, and just start over from there because I just feel like there's no going up unless you just completely start from scratch. Just get rid of any stupid contract that you have and just go from there.
Yeah, and on top of that, you got to get rid of Mickey Loomis. It's never going to get better while he's there.
Yeah, that's step one. Or get new ownership because that seems to work out for some teams.
True.
Not actually, but that's all the scheduled content that we have for today. Anything else you want to touch on before we end the show? You want to talk about Bill Belichick?
Sure. What happened to my GOAT, man? What happened to my GOAT? Like, greatest coach of all time. What? Oh my God. I'm like,
hey, love is love. Love is love. I don't care.
Love is love. Yeah, sure. Sure, buddy. No, I don't believe that. What? Just she has no business doing anything she's doing. And Bill, does she like? Is she blackmailing you or something, man? What the hell? I'm so mad.
I mean, I can understand. I think the problem is that like they go into these this book tour or whatever, and Bill is obviously just wanting to keep it about like football and yada yada. But like obviously when you have your 24-year-old girlfriend, I think that's one of the crazier parts is that his girlfriend is our age.
Well, yeah,
We're
she's
young.
what, 24?
Yeah, 24, something like that. I don't know. But anyways, you are trying to keep it to football and whatever's in the book, but you also have your girlfriend coming around with you. So it's like, obviously, that's one of the biggest stories surrounding you. Of course, people are going to ask you about that. So it's like, you make the bed that you make the bed that you sleep in, so.
Hmm.
Also interesting that he didn't put Robert Kraft in his book at all either. Especially considering that, I mean, you could talk 20 plus years, but I mean, even longer than that because Belichick used to be a defensive coordinator during the Parcells regime in the 90s. So even longer than that when you think about it. So definitely interesting to say the least.
I got nothing, man. I'm just
I don't have much
I'm
else
just
on that.
sad.
He's still my goat. I don't care.
Same.
But that's it. That's all we got.
Yeah, no, that's pretty much it. I just
Cool. Hey, good show.
That Bill thing hurts me.
What hurts you?
The whole Bill thing, man.
Oh,
like
yeah.
the man who's known for not taking any kind of crap is now doing this. Like, geez.
Yeah, for sure. But that'll do it for us tonight. Thank you for tuning in for another edition of the Fumblerooski podcast. New episode coming out on Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. We're gonna switch over to strictly only Tuesdays at some point. We'll obviously keep you updated on that. But be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also have all our episodes available on Spotify, Spreaker, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, Google Podcast, and so much more. And be sure to follow our Instagram, Fumblerooski_podcast, to keep up with the pod and the latest coverage on the NFL. And obviously to keep stay tuned on when we will be making the switch to one episode a week throughout the summer for our off-season coverage, going through every single division at some point. But like I said, keep you updated on that. Otherwise, for myself, Chris Costich, she's CJ Medeiros, powered by Power 8018 Radio and Secret Weapon Consulting. We'll see you on Tuesday. Over and out.